point did you guys kind of feel comfortable staying at 28 and saying we can get a guy who can help us? And also, what do you like about the characteristics that Payton brings?
Yeah, look, you do your homework. You explore possibilities of moving, and he was someone like you're never certain that a player is going to be available, and we weren't with this player. Man, he's got a lot of things, a lot of traits that we value. He was a high energy player. He's prototype, his size. We really had this player is someone that you couldn't help but notice. The makeup was good. And, you know, you don't go into a draft necessarily sometimes saying, hey, this was a position. You're really paying attention to the talent. And what I mean by that is it might not have appeared to have been a player at a position we would want, but there were too many things that we felt gave this guy a lot of chances to be successful in our league. And so we're excited about it. We've paid attention to all these guys in the defensive front. There are a lot of good players on the board still, and we were fortunate to get one.
Sean, would you say you were more active than normal, looking to trade up, or was this maybe more of a normal first round for you? How active would you say you guys were trying to get?
Look, historically, Mickey and I both, I would say historically, moved forward quite a bit. We've come into the first round, you know, we've done that before. And so, look, I think, you know, back in 06, 7, 8, and 9, you could really be active, which I'm sure were at times. There's so many reports that half of it you believe and half of it you don't. But yeah, we were on the call and we spoke with, you know, we feel like it's our job to speak with people in front, just find out their appetite. One of the challenges there's a lot of new GMs and head coaches, and so you know, sometimes you have a relationship and you know that the appetite or palate someone has for making a deal. And so we definitely were on the phone with a number of teams in front of us, but I don't think that was unusually more than a year ago, 2 years ago, or I think that's just how we approach it.
Hey, Sean, how much goes into this, if any at all? You talked about Ryan Nielsen this offseason, keeping that he'll be coaching a player like Turner, or does that even weigh on your mind when you're selecting a player like this?
Yeah, look, I think number one, Ryan does a fantastic job. And I think he and Brian Young, you know, when given, along with the scouts, when given these players to grade and evaluate and read, those opinions matter. You know, I think most importantly, the vision that everyone has and what we feel like the player can do early on. And it's hard to find those players, guys that we feel like can rush the passer, guys that have that stature. So it was one of those picks that I know the scouts, as well as the coaches, all of us involved. I mean, he's someone that has got a fantastic makeup. So he's exciting.
Sean, how big of a role does like length play in that position specifically?
A lot. You know, you in our history, we do the bench press test, you know, where they rep 225 as many times as possible. And every once in a while, you're reminded when you pull up the top 10 scores of all time. Obviously, there's some things you gain from that, but the top 10 most amount of reps of all time generally are players that lack that length and have had trouble maybe playing. I think in our league, at that position, it matters. I no different than the offensive tackle. Generally speaking, those guys are both in a fight for first contact, and you feel his length when you watch the tape.
Sean, I know he's kind of new to the position, second year, I believe it was. Is there still a lot of room for growth with him too? Along with what he's already been able to do?
Absolutely. Look, I just spoke with Dana, and we talked to their people before. We saw a tremendous upside relative to the position, and you can't come away from watching his film and not feel like he played hard. And you see that. If I didn't say anything about who we were looking at on defense, I think at some point you'd ask who he was.
Hey, Sean, last year, when you drafted Ruiz, you said we didn't draft him to sit. Is that something you could say about Turner, like a guy you could see contribute, making a big
playing
impact?
and he'll play and earn those reps this first year, and I think we've always done a really good job at developing a rotation and working with typically a good game day number of 8 usually. So we'll have a clear vision for his role.
Sean, at the same time, you guys also picked up the option on Marcus Davenport. Obviously, there's room for 3 defensive ends to play in that rotation. Do you feel like he has a lot of room still to grow, and you all of a sudden feel really good about that?
There'll be more than 3 defensive ends. We'll these guys, if they've got the traits that we feel like they have, we've got more depth, and we feel like it's a passing game, and we feel like it's an important position.
Hey, Sean, I asked Mickey yesterday about the players that may be grouped up between like 25 and 40, and he said that it's kind of an eye of the beholder thing. Do you think that this player fits into that category, or did you all maybe have a higher grade on him and were surprised even when he was there, or does he kind of fall into that category of eye of the beholder in that kind of 25 to 40 grouping?
No, it's a good question. We had this guy graded differently than that group. There are some things when you study that group closely. There are a lot of things these guys do well. We felt this player was in a different category. I think that there are going to be a number of good football players drafted tomorrow, obviously in 2 rounds. But I understand the question relative to, each team might have a stack a little differently. We felt this guy was in a different ballpark though, with his traits, his makeup, his skill set. It was different.
Sean, you mentioned last week at the Zurich Classic that you hope to address cornerback, or you needed to address cornerback before the start of the season. Was some of the trade up geared towards trying to get a corner, and does this now increase maybe the urgency to find somebody tomorrow?
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways to fill needs on your team. Obviously the draft is one of them. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. We'll see what the next 2 days brings. It's obviously a position we're paying close attention to, and we feel like we've evaluated a lot of good football players at that position this year. So let's see what happens. But look, when we're calling pre-draft, we're gauging. We're not talking or thinking necessarily specifically one player, but we're gauging the team's interest ahead of us. Some teams right from the get-go felt like they were going to stay put, and there are a few teams that felt like, hey, we'd be interested, but it would have to be something that didn't make any sense. So clearly we're aware of where that position was, or where we felt that position was graded. And then we'll pay attention here in the next 2 days.
Sean, it seems like you guys have really consistently, ever since you've been here, through multiple coordinators and personnel people, really valued that size and length in defensive ends, as opposed to maybe the smaller tweener edge rusher guys. Can you talk about why you have that philosophy and where that comes from?
Yeah, look, part of it's your scheme fit, and part of it is a little bit of my early days with New York, and then with Bill in Dallas, certainly Jeff the same way, Mickey, the vision, especially in the early part of the draft, you're hopefully drafting prototype players, size, weight, speed. Clearly there are exceptions that become great players, and we've taken exceptions as well. But the length is important, and the durability, stamina. There are times where there's a little bit more energy required of a player that's not as big, and so it's not an end all be all, but that's just kind of a fit for, we feel like that at that position.
If I could ask you, and I understand the answer may not be forthcoming, but a few years ago when we asked you about Mahomes, you told us that you all were interested in him. Not that I asked one specifics on any quarterback, but maybe were you surprised with the way the quarterback board fell when you all were watching it, or did you expect it to fall that way watching these guys come off the board tonight?
Good question. Look, none of us were surprised with the first two picks, right? I think San Francisco did spend a lot of time on two players they were interested in, and arrived at their decision. And then, shortly thereafter that, Mac was taken. You had basically 5 good players. Was Mac the last one at 15?
Yes.
Yeah. So look, Fields was taken right there, and then Mac. All 5 of those guys have to be happy. There was none of this like all the way to pick 28 or 29, and all of them. Look, they all have had real good careers. Be it some of them a little bit briefer than others, and part of that was COVID. And each team, you could go around the league and have 32 teams stack those 5 players, and you'd have some similarities with some teams, but outside that, maybe the first pick, I think you would probably get a little different depending on club ranking, maybe 2 through 5, and all of those guys, the teams I'm sure are excited. They have a vision for what they're looking for, and the players have all had winning season, productive winning seasons, and have been guys that have demonstrated their ability.
Sean, when you have a big splash headline like we saw today on draft day coming out of or centered around Green Bay, does it affect your game plan at all, or is it really just let's stick to what we've prepared for?
Well, that was obviously newsworthy, and I don't think it changes the game plan relative to today. Look, you really pay close attention to your own building, and as we prepare for rookie camp, and then the different off-season phases. I think it was a little bit of a surprise for a lot of teams, and yet I really have no idea of the dynamics, but it didn't change today's game plan whatsoever.
Coach, back to Turner for a moment. It was kind of reported that he was kind of a late riser of people's boards as they got medical reports in. Was he the kind of player you were on all along, or did you fall into that category that he kind of slowly kept rising up your board?
No, I think as people studied the tape, I think I felt like when we saw it and then watched it again, you turn the lights on in the room and you say, what are we missing? He's got great size, great length. Again, I think you see a powerful player, you see him play inside, you see stamina on tape, and he was nicked up this year with a calf and played 4 or 5 games of 8. But look, there were too many things that we felt real good about. One more question. Last
Sean,
one.
When you guys were on the phone with other teams, was there ever a serious attempt made to get into the top 10 or top 15?
Yeah, look, you're on the phone, you're discussing, hey, any interest? More than half of them, really didn't have any interest. Some might have an interest, and then, very quickly, the price, look, everyone's fielding a call, And so if you're picking 4 or 6 or 8 and someone calls you about possibly trading up, you're interested, and then it's going to be a hefty price tag sometimes. There are times when you're in one of those positions and maybe you want to move back because you don't have a player or the player you wanted was just taken. So no, we never got to the point, Catherine, where you would say it was serious at all. All right. Thank you, guys.
I'm good. Really good.
What were your expectations coming into this night? Did you have any idea where you might be selected? Did you have any inclination?
I mean, I've heard from GMs, coaches, and everything. They try to keep it low key, but I mean, I figured I was somewhere in the range of 20 to 40. So, I was really excited to get that call at 28 with the Saints. Just crazy organization, but yeah, I mean, I had expectations to go 20 to 40. So, yeah.
Next question's from Luke Johnson with The Advocate.
Hey, Payton, congrats, man. I'm just curious, growing up in the Houston area, do you have any connections with New Orleans or anything like that?
I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of people from New Orleans here in Houston. So, I mean, growing up, I knew a bunch of guys from New Orleans, Louisiana. Playing in at U of H. I'm always in contact with people from Louisiana. But just like me personally, not really. But I mean, I watched them growing up. You watch football, you're going to be a fan of the Saints.
Next question is from Nick Underhill with New Orleans Football.
Yeah, I know you're kind of new to the position, just 2 years since you switched from DT to defensive end. Just how much did that help in your growth as a player, and how much more room do you feel like you have for growth as a defensive end?
I mean, I think I have a lot of room to grow, and that's the only way I can go, especially with where I'm going at the Saints. I got good guys in front of me to learn from, good guys around me to learn from, good coaches and everything. So, I played D tackle. I think it really helped me just being more physical on the edge when I did transition to the edge. And obviously, there was things I needed to learn. There was a learning curve going from my junior to senior season. I think I improved a lot, and then I kind of showed what I could do in my senior season in this past year, 2020. Even though there's a couple bumps in the road, but I think I showed a glimpse of what I can do just with one off-season learning position.
Next question is from Amy Just with The Advocate.
Yeah, back to the phone call. What was that like? Just take us through that moment.
It was crazy. I can't even describe it now. Ecstatic, just relief. It's a dream come true. It doesn't really happen to too many people very often that that their dream comes true. And then just for me to have my dream come true like that, it's just really special for me. I'm on cloud nine. I can't put it any other way besides that.
Do you remember who you talked to?
Yeah, I believe it was the area scout, and I talked to Coach Payton, and then the GM, but and the D-line coach. I don't know. I talked about everybody. My head's spinning though. It's just a crazy experience. I'm just enjoying it.
Next question is for Brett Martell with the Associated Press.
Hey, Payton, congrats. Just with the 5 games last year, did that come up at all that it was a relatively small sample size, or did you feel really good about the fact that you had relatively good statistics for such a few amount of games? And can you just talk about what went into, I guess, did you have I think I read you had a positive COVID test that, I don't know if that kept you out of some games too, or what were all the things that kept you out?
Yeah, so I missed one because of a calf strain, a high calf strain. That was my Cincinnati game. I had that in UCF, and then I got pulled for contact tracing for COVID in the hotel before my South Florida game. So, and then I popped positive for it that next Monday. So I was out for those two games, and I came back from Memphis for just situational. So really, I played about 3.5 games. If we're looking at like snaps wise, I played like 10 maybe in Memphis, but those are the reasons I was out. But I mean, everything's gonna come up. These guys, it's the NFL. They're gonna search for everything. They want answers for everything. So sample size came up, but I was confident in everything that I put on film. Everything that I showed, and I went and confirmed that at Pro Day. So I was confident in my abilities and what I did do on film.
Doug Mouton, WWL TV.
Yeah. Hey, Payton, how much contact have you had with the Saints in the last 5 months? And did you realize that they were on you, that this might be one of your spots?
Yeah, the Saints have talked to me a handful of times. I wouldn't say that they talked to me the most. So not that I was surprised when they called, but I was happy to say the least. But they weren't I didn't know if I had to put a top three together, top five together that was going to pick me in the first round. I wasn't putting the Saints in it, but I mean, I'm excited that they did pick me. I wanted to play for the Saints. They got a lot of guys that are similar to me, but I mean, I was shocked, but excited, surprised more so than shocked. But I mean, I'm just happy to be here in this position I am.
Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle.
Hey, Payton, congratulations.
Appreciate you.
Hey, earlier in the week, you tweeted that you thought that the next few days were going to be really long in terms of waiting. Earlier today, it started to kind of get out you may work into the first round. Did you start to get some feeling there from your agent or anything as you were watching, as you got into the 20s, tonight?
Yeah, like I said, I expected to go 20 to 40. So, when 20 came up, my heart was beating a little bit faster. And just as we went on through the draft, just throughout the night, I was getting a little bit more excited, more anxious just for my moment. And, the Saints didn't upset me. So they called me. I'm just super excited. But, yeah, I mean, I knew once 20 came up, I was in that range. So I don't know, man. I'm just thrilled.
Luke Johnson, The Advocate.
Hey, Peyton, forgive me if I mess any of these details up, but if I understand correctly, you had an ACL injury in high school, and that kind of derailed everything, with your recruitment.
Right.
So how? If you're looking back on that now, you kind of went through that kind of tough stretch there. How validating is this, to end up still being a first round draft pick and all that?
Extremely. I would say validating, because I wasn't really having to prove anything to anybody else. More so to myself, to prove myself right in this situation. So. I'm extremely happy. If that's the question, I'm extremely happy with the way everything turned out. Of course, there's going to be bumps in the road, but that just builds character. So things I went through, that I experienced throughout my recruiting process, that was just part of the journey. To get me to this point that I'm at. So wouldn't really change much. Wouldn't really change anything that's happened to me in my lifetime.
Rod Walker, The Times-Picayune.
Hey, Payton, you mentioned that you were similar to a lot of guys on the Saints, but how much have you watched Cam Jordan, and what do you just kind of think about his play?
Versatility is the first thing that comes to mind when I watch Cam Jordan. I've watched, he's one of the guys that I do watch. My coach, I got a pretty good coach here at Houston, and Coach Brian Early. So he puts film together. He makes comparisons. He makes his own comparisons and just gives us tips on guys to watch. But Cam Jordan, he can do it all. He can rush on the edge. He can apply pressure up the middle. He's got good hips, he's got good feet, he's got good hands. So just to be able to be around him and everything that he's experienced, I think that's pretty invaluable for me. So I'm excited to get over there and know that, and just see what's happening.
Who do you compare yourself to? Is there somebody you'd compare yourself to?
I think I fit in that same category as the Saints defensive ends. Bigger DNs. Obviously, they have more experience and everything, but I'm a big athlete. I'm a big DN that can bend and rush the passer. So I would compare myself to Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, to guys like that. Just longer, bigger DNs that can be physical, but are also versatile.
Amy Just, The Advocate.
Yeah, that leads right into my question. For people who don't know you and haven't watched you, how would you describe yourself as a player and as a person?
I'd say the first thing as a player, I'm going to be violent on the edge. I'm going to set the edge. I'm going to get after the quarterback, wherever it is, whether I'm lined up in a 3-tech or I'm lined up on a defensive end or in a 9 technique. So, I'd say violent and relentless is the way I play. Every time I'm out on that field, I'm going to give everything I got. And as far as a person, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to be a high character dude. That's coming in the building, same dude every day. That's the mentality. That's the way you got to go about it. That's the way I go about my work. So that's the kind of dude I am. And I'm just ready to play. I'm ready to get to know and play.
Last question for Nick Underhill, New Orleans Football.
How are you able to use your length to your advantage?
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
How does your length help your game, and how do you use that to your advantage?
In the run game, it's definitely a pretty supreme advantage, I think, just to be able to keep blockers off you, those tackles, and just disengage and make a play two gaps, whether you're playing on the outside on the defensive end, setting the edge, and then coming up under in the B gap and making a play, or, getting off the rock and setting the edge, keeping the blocker off you, getting vision on the quarterback or the ball. So in that sense, I mean, it's really the advantage that you want, especially from an edge defender. And then in the pass game, there's so many things you can work with your length. That's why it's so coveted and so important. That's why you hear them talking about tackles having length is so important, just because defensive ends are such long athletes, and being able to play on the edge and keep the blockers' hands off me. I think those are pretty essential for an edge defender. So, I'm glad I got those traits.
Payton, congratulations again. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Who dat, baby?